StraighTAllDay.com.
To the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the keys to superstardom. There's an actual formula to get there. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is and how it works no matter what space you happen to be in. Before I do that, let me remind you all that I have a daily motivation text that I send out free of charge every morning to everybody in my texting community. It's free to be a member of the community, but you must be a member in order to get this message. So text me at this number to join. My number is 305-384-6894. Just send a message to that number. Let me know you want to get the daily motivation, and every day starting tomorrow when I send that message out, you shall receive the daily motivation text message. That number is listed down below in the description or show notes if you didn't catch it. Secondly, Work on Your Game University is the only place where you can be coached directly by me, a place where you can join a community of like-minded individuals, a place where you can get help on any growth, advancement, challenge, need areas you have in your life, whether they be personal or professional. You get access to our most important frameworks on things like mindset, such as bulletproof mindset, 30 days of discipline, ASAP confidence, toughen up, things like strategy, like content machine or the business builder framework, systems like the Work on Your Game system, or even things like accountability, which is also that 30 days of discipline course, also the next mission framework. All of that and a whole lot more that I did not just mention are all part of what you get when you are a member of Work on Your Game University. So if you haven't joined a university yet, or don't even know that the university existed, you didn't know it existed until I just said it, good, now you know. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is also down below in the description or the show notes if you did not catch it. Now, getting into the topic today, which is keys to superstardom. The definition of superstar is a state of being extremely famous and successful. Now, both of those terms are relative. When I say fame, I don't mean you have to be so famous that you can't go to the gas station or the grocery store by yourself because you're being mobbed by fans. Fame is relative to your space. So you could be a nobody to 99% of the world, but in your space, everybody knows you because usually they know you because of the level of success that you have created. And success is another relative term. So you get to define your success. What is success to you? How do you know how do you know you are successful? What would you need to achieve that will make you successful? What's something measurable? What are some measurables you could put on that you can say, all right, once I do these 8 things, I know I'm successful. And you are extremely successful. So taking it to the extreme, once you create that extreme success, usually other people in your space who are probably doing or trying to do the same things you're doing, they notice how well you're doing it. They'll notice you become famous to them. So being a superstar here, we're talking in relative terms to your space, not absolute terms according to everybody in the world. So you don't have to be famous to everybody. So today let's talk about what those keys are to creating superstardom in your space. Point number 1, topic once again is keys to superstardom. Number 1 is you impact the situation every day with no exceptions. Or we could say every time that you are involved in the situation, whatever in your area that you're a superstar, every time you're involved, you have a high impact on the situation. And there are no exceptions. In other words, there are no times when you're there, but nobody really notices that you were there because you didn't really do anything, you had no impact. Anytime you're involved in an area in which you are a superstar, you make an impact. In sports, some people have gone to call this the leap. You make the leap, L-E-A-P, the leap, when you start having a high impact on the situation every single game that you play in. Regardless of how you're feeling, regardless of who the opponent is, regardless of the circumstance or the situation, if it's the beginning of the season, the middle, the end of the season, the playoffs, the championship, you always have an impact on the game. You don't take the leap until you are doing that every single time. Not once in a while, not most of the time, every time. That's the leap. There was this player who played, he probably stopped playing maybe 10 or so years ago, maybe less, a guy named Gilbert Arenas. Some of you may know him if you're a deep basketball fan. And he used to have this, there was a time he had a blog on NBA.com. This was early days of blogging. This is back like early, mid 2000s, first decade of this century. And Gilbert admitted that he didn't actually write the blog. Somebody from the NBA would call him and he would talk to them. They would write down what he said and then they would put it out and call it Gilbert Arenas' blog. And there was a point that Gilbert made that was a really good point that's always stuck with me. He said, when you talk about the star players in the league versus the superstar players in the league versus the average players in the league, talking about the NBA basketball players, is at this point, at this time that he had his blog, Gilbert Arenas was at the superstar level. Now, notice that he was there at that time. Not everybody stays there. Most people don't start there, and a lot of times people don't end there, but they have their peers where they are there. At this point, Gilbert was a superstar when he was doing his blog. And he explained, he said, look, most of the players on my team, and the basketball team has about 12 to 15 people on it. He said most of the players on my team have the skill set that they could be superstars the same way that I'm a superstar. But they aren't superstars because they are not consistent in their performance. Like skill set wise, they have the ability to do all the stuff that the superstars do. They just don't do it every single time. And he gave some ratios. I don't remember the exact number that he gave, but it was something along the lines of the average player in the NBA, they have a good game, a really solid good game, maybe about half of the games of the season. NBA season is 82 games. So the average and role players, they play well in about half of those games. So that's 41 games. Then the star players, they play well in about 60 of the games, 60 out of 82. Or star or solid role players, like let's say the starters, the star, solid role player level guys, they play good in about 60 of the games. And then the stars, the superstars, like the people who you know by their names, like the Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan back when he was playing, or LeBron James now, those players, they have a good game in about 75 out of 82 games. So they're not high impact games. Games where they don't have a high impact are few and far between. And that's why they're superstars. It's because of their ability to do it every time, not their ability to do it, period. Because as Gilbert explained, everybody, most of the players in the NBA, he explained, have the ability to do it. They just don't do it every time. What makes players a superstar is the fact they do it every time. So that's what I want you to get. That's the leap. You are recognized when you are recognized as a star on your team. Your team can be your family. It can be your business. It can be the industry that you work in. If you play sports, it can be the team you play on. That when you're in that situation, you may have a whole lot of factors that are basically your opponents are game planning to stop you. Your opponents can be psychological, they can be tangible, real, they can be actual people. If you're playing a sport, you got opponents trying to stop you. But even though they're planning to stop you and your team from being successful, despite their game planning, you still are able to make a strong impact on the game, and your team is still successful despite the fact that everyone is game planning to stop you from being successful. You're successful regardless of the fact that they're trying to stop you. This is what a superstar does. This is the impact that a superstar makes. And I want you to understand that this is not a preference, everyone. This is not a nice to have. This is a requirement if you want to be a superstar. So here's the question. How does this apply when you're in business? You don't necessarily have an opponent trying to stop you, because in sports this makes perfect sense, right? Because in sports, every game there's an opponent. You're trying to beat the opponent's trying to beat you. But what about in business when there's not always a direct opponent? In business, it means that despite the circumstances in front of you or whatever situation that could affect your performance, you still go out and perform and have a positive impact on the outcome of your business every single time that you show up. So even if that means, even if the industry is in a downturn, even if the sales and the revenue in your business have been slow, even if you just lost a part of your staff, even if you just onboarded a bunch of new people who don't quite know what they're doing, you still are making a positive impact. Your company still makes a positive impact driven by you because they have a superstar on the team, that superstar being the person in the mirror. That's you. This is what makes you a superstar of what you do. You are not just doing it sometimes. You're not just doing it when you feel good. You're not just doing it when circumstances are favorable. You do it every single time. That's what makes you a superstar. And I want you all to understand, this is not a talent thing. This is not an ability thing. This is a mindset thing. So you notice, over here at Work on Your Game, those of you who are new around here, everything always comes back to mindset. And I don't do that in some type of clever, tricky way. Just these things that we're talking about, in order for these things to work, mindset is the foundation of it. This is not about your actual skill set and capability and potential, because every person in the world, even everybody listening to me right now, you have skills, you have capabilities, and you have potential. The question is not if you have these things. The question is, will you execute in such a way that you are squeezing the juice out of them on a consistent basis? That's what the real question. The question is not, do you have ability? The question is, Can you execute on that ability all the time? That's what makes you a superstar, when you do it all the time. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, are keys to superstardom. Number 2, your energy, this is another requirement. Your energy galvanizes the team. Those of you not familiar with the word galvanize, let's get a definition of that word, because I like this word. Here's what it means. Galvanize means to shock or excite someone into taking action. That's the definition of galvanize, to shock or excite someone into taking action. Britannica Dictionary says, that was a Google definition. Here's a Britannica definition, a little bit meatier. It says to cause people to become so excited or concerned about an issue or idea that they want to do something about it. In other words, galvanizing, to put it in simple terms, is your ability to move other people to action. That's what the galvanize means. It means you infect others with your energy. Any of you in sales? All right, what is sales? It's a transfer of energy. It's a transfer of emotion. If you can affect other people with your energy and you feel great about the product that you're selling, then you'll probably make more sales than a person who cannot galvanize prospects to become customers. Can we agree? As a superstar, your presence is what drives everybody else to be their best. That's your job as a superstar. It's not just for you to do your thing. It's how do you drive everybody else to do their thing. When I was playing pro basketball overseas, and any of you don't know anything about overseas basketball, understand this. When you're an American playing professional basketball, and especially actually this is in all countries outside of USA. This is whether you're playing in Asia, I never played in Asia, whether you're playing in Central or South America, which I do have experience in, or you're playing in Europe, which I also have experience in. Generally, because Americans perfected basketball, and we do have the best basketball league in the world being the NBA, and the biggest pool of talent being the Americans who grow up playing basketball, because it's a very popular sport here. You as an American playing internationally are looked at to be expected as the best player. It's expected you're going to be the best player on the team. And being the best player on the team does not just mean you get to take all the shots and score all the points, although that may be part of your job. It's also that your energy every day in practice, because, and I'll get to that in a second, every day in practice, at all the games, the way you conduct yourself, the way you carry yourself, you are expected to be a standard bearer and an example setter for everybody else on the team. It's not just how many points did you have and how many shots did you get to take in the game. Yes, again, that can be part of it, but it's also the fact that you are the standard bearer and the example setter for everybody else. That's what they expect of you when you play basketball professionally overseas. And the reason I brought up practice is because the NBA plays 82 games a season. In most countries outside of the USA, very few leagues play even half as many games as the NBA plays. Why does the NBA play so many games? Because the more games they play, the more times they can fill the arenas with all the fans, and there's more money to be made, and the NBA is run as a capitalistic venture, as a money-making venture. Whereas in other places, a lot of times, those teams and leagues are not run necessarily for the purpose of making maximum profit. If they were, they would play as many games as the NBA does. But they're not always run for that reason, so they don't play as many games. But you're still over there for the same amount of time, meaning like months or a year, whatever. And instead of playing games, what you're doing is practicing. So there are teams that I play for where we only play one game per week. And over the course of a season, that would only be 30, 40 games. But in between those games, we practiced a lot. And you were expected as the American player to be the standard bearer and the example setter for everybody else of how to practice hard all the time. And all those practices, that's part of your job as the superstar of the team. And again, people expect you to be the superstar whether you were able to do it or not. And if you weren't able to do it, well, you get a coach class plane ticket back home to the United States. So in business, you are expected to do the same thing. In sports, they call it making your teammates better. In business, you're doing the same thing, making the people around you better. People should, as a superstar, have more success working with you than they have doing things by themselves. That's what a superstar does. People are better off being on your team than they're being not on your team. And if they're starting their own, they actually can get to the point where they're starting their own teams. Why? Because you have helped them create more success. You've shown them how to do it, so then they can take what they learned from you and they can go get better. Like if somebody comes and works with me, like here at Work on Your Game Incorporated, not in sports, somebody works with me, they should be doing better a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now than they were when they first started working with me, whether they're still working with me or they have gone off and done something else without me. Why? Because what they learned by being around me is going to make them better than what they would have learned had they not been around me. That's what a superstar does. I've had people who are working with me stop working with me and then go start businesses doing the stuff that they learned from me. And now, while it wasn't pleasant in the moment for it to happen, because now I got to go replace that person that I made really good, it's also a feather in my cap. Why? Because I made this person so good that they were able to go and do their own thing without me. You get it? So this is what a superstar does. So look around the people who are around you. Are they getting better or are they getting worse? Are they staying the same? When someone collaborates with you, they should do better doing that, working with you, than they would if they didn't work with you. And again, the difference should be measurable, clear, and obvious. So here's a simple question. Are the people around you, are they getting better working with you, or are they getting better when they work without you? This is a simple black and white question, by the way. This is not it depends. There's no explanation. There's no story that needs to be told. It's either they are or they're not. What is the overall outcome? What are the overall outcomes of the people who are working with you? Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is keys to superstardom. Number 3, average is no longer acceptable. When you are a superstar, it is not acceptable for you to be average. As you ascend to the superstar level, understand that you cannot perform at an average level anymore, nor can you produce average outputs. Now, this is okay for the average performer to produce at the average level and to produce average outputs. Even the star sometimes is going to do this, but the superstar has to deliver every single time, every single performance, every single game. Why? Why does superstar have to deliver every time? Because you are the person who is selling the tickets, or you're the one that's bringing everybody in the room. In the sports world, they say you're the person who puts butts in the seats. So you go to a sporting event to watch your favorite team play. Usually there's, depending on what sport we're talking about, there's usually only a handful of people amongst the entire team that you're actually coming to see. You're not coming to see the role players and the guys who sit on the bench. You're coming to see one of the star players. So the star player has to show up and deliver every time. Why? Because you're the reason that most of these people are here. Everybody else is kind of benefiting from the energy that you create, your teammates, for example. So people come to the event or the game or the venue or the program. Why? Because you, superstar, are there. You're the one that's driving most of the activity. So if I host an event and I have Work on Your Game Live, the people who come to Work on Your Game Live are coming there because Dre is hosting Work on Your Game Live. So I can't put it on the event manager or my assistant or the cameraman to bring more energy than I do, or to do the job that I'm not doing, because listen, the cameraman could be interchangeable. The event manager could be interchangeable. Whatever assistant I have working with me can be interchangeable. But the reason that people came is to hear and see the main person, whoever that main person happens to be. You got to show up and deliver on that promise. Even if you didn't make a promise, there's a promise. There's an unspoken promise just because of the fact that you did what you did. Now, again, this sounds fun, it sounds easy, and it sounds exciting, but it is a grind, and it is hard, and it is extremely demanding. Why? Because you don't get any days off. There are no vacations when you're the superstar. Every single time, you got to show out and deliver. All right, you don't get any breaks. And this is the expectation and requirement placed upon you as a superstar. And as long as you have that title of superstar, you have to deliver on that title. You have to deliver every time. Michael Jordan once said that he understood, once he became Michael Jordan in all capital letters, that every time he played in a game, that there were some fans in the stands who had rearranged their schedules and set up their lives to get their one chance to see Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls play. And Michael Jordan took personal responsibility to show up every time and deliver for those people, because he knew they were coming to see him. He knew they weren't coming to see one of his lesser heralded teammates, or even to see the opponent, whoever he was playing against. He knew they were coming to see him, and he knew he had to show up and deliver based on that expectation that was people wanted to know who he was. People wanted to not know who he was, but they wanted to be able to say, I saw this guy and this team play, and he was the guy that made that team relevant. He was the guy that made that team the must-see TV, I guess we'll say. So when you're that superstar, you have to deliver on it every single time. This is extremely demanding. This is more of a mental challenge than it is a physical challenge. Can you move yourself on a consistent basis mentally to show up and deliver like that? And what do you do to stay on that level mentally? Because this has to be more than just motivation. You're going to need a lot more than that to do it all the time. Now, motivation can work once or twice, but to do it all the time, you're going to need more than that. And that's why you get the bulletproof mindset, like we're going to talk about in Work on Your Game University. I'll explain in a second. But let me recap this class first. Keys to superstardom. Again, the state of being extremely famous and successful relative to your space Point number 1, you impact the situation every day with no exceptions. In sports, they call this taking the leap. It is when you are recognized as a star on your team, you know that the opponents, whatever your challengers are, they are all game planning to stop you, and you deliver every time anyway. That is your job. You have a positive impact no matter what is going on. Number 2, your energy galvanizes the team. You are able to move other people to action through your own energy, not even necessarily your words. Just your energy sets an example that everybody else is compelled to follow because of the way you show up. Your presence drives everybody else to be their best. In sports, they call it making your teammates better. In business, you're doing the same thing. You got to make the people around you better. And the people around you should have more success working with you than they have without you. So ask yourself, are the people around you getting better or are they getting worse? Point number 3, average is no longer acceptable. When you ascend to the superstar level, you can't perform at an average level simply because all the business is being driven by your organization, is being driven because people believe in you. They came to see you. So if you are not able to deliver every time, well, word's going to get around that you don't deliver, and people are not going to be as interested. They won't be willing to spend as much money. They're not going to show up, and now everything starts to fall apart simply because you, as a superstar, are not fulfilling your responsibility and doing your job of giving your best effort and performing at your best level. You are the one who's driving most of the activity, so you can't put this on anybody else. You can't abdicate this. You cannot take a day off. This is extremely demanding. Physically on one level, but on a much higher level mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, because you have to keep moving yourself to these actions even when you physically don't feel like it. And there are times when you're going to have to push through challenging circumstances that are not favorable to you, and you still have to show up and deliver because everybody is expecting you to do so, including your teammates, the people in your organization, the fans, your customers, and everybody. And you should be expecting it as well. And this is what makes you a superstar. Can you do it in the moments when it seems like you could probably take that day off? I'll close with this one last story. Michael Jordan again. He was playing for the Bulls. They were playing the Vancouver Grizzlies, who now, they're not in Vancouver, they're now in Memphis, Tennessee. But they used to be based in Vancouver. And this particular year, the Bulls were on their way to winning a championship. The Bulls were not very good this particular, not the Bulls, excuse me, the Grizzlies were not very good this particular year. The Bulls were the best team in the NBA. So this is one game that the Bulls come to Vancouver because they play the West Coast teams once a year, Western Conference. And the Grizzlies are actually beating the Bulls. This is one of those days the Bulls just didn't have healthy legs or fresh legs. They had tired legs. They've been on a long road trip. This is their last game of a road trip. This is what they used to call back in the days a schedule loss. That you just know by looking at the schedule, this is a game we're probably going to lose because we're on our last game of a road trip. They're at home. They're going to be all jacked up for the game. We're dead tired. We're ready to go home at the end of this road trip. And the Bulls are losing to this worst team in the NBA. They got all their fans at the game. This is the only game they sold out all season because the team was so terrible they couldn't get the fans to come to any other game. They came to see the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls aren't playing good. It gets late in the game, one guy starts trash talking to Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan just goes off. Not goes off talking to the guy, but goes off and starts playing at a much higher level. So Michael Jordan just kicked it into a higher gear, scores a whole bunch of points in the fourth quarter. The Bulls come back and win the game. And this is a story that many of Michael Jordan's teammates tell about him. And when they talk about him in reverence and say what made him so great, like, yeah, of course we know about the endorsements and the dunks and the championships and the stats. But what many of his coaches and teammates said, what made Michael Jordan special was not what he did in the big moments, because everybody gets excited for the big moments. It's what he did in the moments that seemingly would not matter. So this game that I'm giving you an example of, had they lost this game to the Vancouver Grizzlies and Michael Jordan just had a shitty game, I wouldn't be telling the story, and nobody would hold it against Michael Jordan that he had this one bad game amongst thousands of great games in his career. This is one of those few and far between bad games for him. Nobody will hold it against him. But the fact that he refused to have a bad game on a night when it looked like the world demanded, the universe was demanding he have a bad game, he said, no, I'm not going to have a bad game. I'm going to dominate anyway. And then he went out and did it. That's what made him great. And if you want to be a superstar, I want you to think about that. That's the kind of thing you need to be doing. All that said, text me and let me know you want to get that daily motivation every day for free to your phone. My number is 305-384-6894. And Work on Your Game University. You want to get the education on how you put the pieces in place that will allow you to do what I just explained to you superstars do. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Take the next step. We'll tell you exactly what to do to get your next step, to get into working with me directly, and we can start installing the superstar process into you from the inside out. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.